Um, it's this word that everybody keeps tossing around, and hopefully by the end of today's presentation, we're going to talk about what exactly is it, where to find your stuff. That's kind of the next question usually everybody has is, where is it? Like, where are my files? Everybody says put it in SharePoint, but I'm not exactly sure where that is. We're going to show you how to do that today. We're going to talk a little bit about why it's important. Why is it important to you? How is it going to be used? How can you use it? This is where we're going to hear from some of your colleagues. They're going to let us know how they're currently using SharePoint in their day-to-day. And then we're going to talk about how it all works together. So SharePoint, OneDrive, Teams, all of these sort of, some people are familiar with them, some people have kind of heard about it, but we're not really sure how it all comes together. So that's what we're going to talk about today. At any time, if you need me to repeat something, if you need me to slow down, I have a tendency to talk quickly, or if you want me just to clarify something, please feel free to unmute yourself, interrupt me, ask a question, and I'll try to keep an eye on the chat too, or Lindsay, if you can keep an eye on it and let me know if there's a question and I need to address it right then. And then we're going to have a section at the end where you can just ask me all kinds of questions about SharePoint, and we'll go from there. So what exactly is it? What you're seeing here are different examples of SharePoint sites. You may have heard of the intranet. Extension has its own site as well. Other sites are part of or connected to the AgriLife intranet hub, and we're not even going to go down the hub road today. That's a whole other topic. But all of these are examples of SharePoint sites. So what exactly is SharePoint? So SharePoint is a platform. Some people have said, is it an app? Is it not an app? It's not really an app. It's a platform. So think of it like a stage. If you were at a concert, there's a stage in front of you. That stage has a place for the musicians to stand and perform. And the musicians each have their different songs that they perform. So how does that relate to SharePoint? Well, in SharePoint, SharePoint is the stage. The document libraries and where you store your files, those are the instruments or the musicians. And then the files themselves that are going into those document libraries, those would be the songs that are being performed. So it kind of gives you an idea of structure. Or you can think of it as the old file cabinet analogy. SharePoint is the file cabinet itself. Each drawer could be a different site. Inside the site is a document library. Those are your folders. And then the things that go into those folders are going to be your documents themselves, your files. It's also a tool that allows you to build intranets like we have created with AgriLife. You have this whole intranet that got launched. You'll hear intranet used. It's really SharePoint sites that are all connected, and that's what makes up the intranet. It's also a way where it's like a site for your team. So each team that's been created in Microsoft Teams has a team site, which is sort of like a single SharePoint site that has its own document library, and you can have multiple document libraries, and lets you share news that's relevant to your team, events that might be coming up, and different things using web parts to create a team site. And the most important thing is it is not as intimidating as you might think it is, I promise. Once you kind of get a feel for it, you're going to feel a lot more familiar and more comfortable with it, and we're going to go from there. Okay. So how it got started, just so you have a little bit of background on it, way back in 1990, I guess, when Microsoft first launched, they had this wonderful structure that used file servers, and you guys might remember the old shared drives. You've heard of shared drives that were on a file server. That was a physical computer that sat somewhere in a closet, and you might have had shared drives. And lots of times they came with a label of S, as in Sam. And so I had a shared drive, Lindsay had a shared drive, everybody had a shared drive. Well, what was in my shared drive might not be the same thing that was in your shared drive, but we all had one, and it allowed us to share files, put everything in the same places. How many of you remember the layers upon layers upon layers of folders within folders within folders within folders? folders and how hard it was to sometimes find something that you were looking for. And then add on top of that, I might have saved a file in one place and somebody else may have saved a file in somewhere else, and we're all working on it, and then we go to save it to the same shared drive in the same folder, and somebody saves it and just overwrites what I've just worked on and it's gone, or they accidentally delete it, or we're just not really sure who has the most current version, and all those types of things. So to answer this issue, in 2003, SharePoint came on the scene. And so this became a different way for you to manage your documents. So SharePoint became
Oh, it looks like you got
There
muted. Okay.
Now I'm unmuted. Okay,
Okay.
so let me repeat. Where did I stop? I think it was back here. So back in, we had this whole mishmash of where documents were saved, shared drives, those types of things. And so in 2003, Microsoft launched SharePoint, which was just a new document management tool. And they used this, it was in the cloud. In some cases, they actually had servers, but it mimicked the old shared drive folder structure. So instead of having a shared drive, you had a SharePoint site. And then you still had document libraries, but you still had folders. They were now called document libraries. And so it kind of used a familiar structure, but just put it in a different format, if you will, different tool being used. SharePoint is also how the early intranets were developed and created. And they've just kind of gotten more polished over time. So where are we today with SharePoint? Well, SharePoint today is used in lots of different ways. Some people are using it with their team sites. We have the intranet, which uses communication sites, and we're going to go into that a little bit more. But what I'd like to do is hear from some people how they are using SharePoint. So I know that Amanda should be with us now. Amanda Pelton, are you there?
Yes, I'm here.
Okay, if you wouldn't mind just kind of telling us how you're using SharePoint and the different tools within SharePoint that you're using in your day-to-day.
Okay, so in administrative services, we utilize SharePoint in many ways, but it's primarily for communication. All our mass communications are now being sent out through SharePoint News Post for email. And as an example of that, last week we sent out the early release for Thanksgiving. And we've also used this for wellness opportunities, social events, and just business updates.
Great, thank you. I also asked Lori Martin if she would kind of share, because I know she's a big champion of technology and using the tools that are out there and available, and she's usually one of our early adopters. So I kind of tapped her to just kind of give us an idea of how she's utilizing SharePoint these days.
Thanks, Jill. As we've talked about, SharePoint is great for collaboration, file storage, and sharing files. One of the things that I do is I have SharePoint open all the time. So I use Google Chrome. And when I open Google Chrome every day, I have about 6 or 7 tabs that open across the top. One of them is SharePoint. And then I also have drilled down in SharePoint to some of the things that I don't want to have to look for, but I just want to find it there. And I have those open as tabs too. One of them is the first call request support ticket. So I can just click that tab and put in the information that I need, and it takes care of it for me. And then another tab that I have open right now is AgriLife Aspire. And that is our new employee development and training website that's on the intranet. And I'm an ambassador for Aspire as well. So that's something that I'm getting into all the time. One of the biggest things I do with SharePoint is I go back and I can do global searches. So all you have to do is in SharePoint is click the Texas A&M AgriLife logo to take you to the root level of the intranet of SharePoint. And then when you do that search, you can come up with all of the forms that are in administrative services. It brings up all of your documents in your OneDrive. It brings up all of the documents in Teams that you're a part of. So I know some of you may have confusion about where a document is it on my OneDrive? Is it in Teams, or where is it? So if you're using that global search in SharePoint, you will find all of those documents and anything related to it. So that's one of the things that I use basically every day. And also one of the good things about the intranet and SharePoint is that if you're doing a form, an AG, whatever, and you need to find that form, you can go in and just click that in the search box, find the form, and you're always working with the most current data, the most current form. You don't have to worry if it's been updated. So I've kind of started doing that instead of storing files on my computer, because a lot of times they'll end up being out of date. And then another thing is that on the intranet sites, I follow the ones where I used to go to websites all the time, like admin services and different things. I follow those, and that way that customizes the feed that you get on your email as far as updates as well. And particularly like Marcom and the new EDE, or I guess it's renamed Educational Development. So those things are some of the things I like to follow, but it's great. You can do everything in SharePoint because you can access all of your Excel, Word, any of those things. You don't have to do them on your computer, and they sync automatically if you're out in SharePoint.
Perfect. Lori, I knew I could count on you. Thank you so much for those.
Sorry.
And no, that's all awesome, because you mentioned several things that I do want to make sure that we demonstrate. As soon as we're done with this, I'm going to go into a live demo, and I want to show some key features that you mentioned, primarily the search function, because I think that helps people when they're trying to figure out where stuff is. Using that global search is very helpful. Also, using the follow option, and a lot of people aren't aware of using the follow option. Trust me, if you've ever bookmarked a website, you know how to follow a SharePoint site. So it's basically the same thing. And one of the other things is I had contacted Trey Rice, because I know he does quite a few of these Tech Tuesday presentations, and just kind of tapped and asked him how he might be using this, and he's not able to attend today. But what he commented was that FCH unit uses SharePoint as an internal employee-only website, and they host a lot of the educational resources and materials that the FCH agents use with their programs. And they also host their program briefs there, so that's where they're saving them. And then the Office of Data and Accountability hosts the evaluation resources there. So some of their training and how-to resources are located on SharePoint, and agents can use those to measure like pre and post knowledge gained through extension educational programs. So all of these are part of the AgriLife intranet. These are all sites and pages that are all searchable and found on the intranet using SharePoint. So I want to make sure that I demonstrate how to do those searches, and then also how to follow those sites that may be just interesting to you, or things that are relevant to your job that you want to make sure you keep updated on. Okay. Does anybody else want to share how they're using SharePoint? Floor is open.
Lori Martin also mentioned, being able to have your Microsoft Forms and other productivity tools listed on there.
Yes. So I will actually show you some of those, and we'll look at the admin services page and just kind of show you how all of that's set up. And I'll even show you our intranet site on the back end of the IT page or site, if you will. We have multiple pages, so I'll kind of show you how those are laid out and structured. Okay, awesome. I'm going to go ahead and move on, because I want to make sure I leave lots of time for questions, because I anticipate there's going to be a few, maybe more than a few. So exactly, where's my stuff? So Lori sort of tapped on this with the global search. Where is it saved? We talk about SharePoint, we talk about document libraries, there's OneDrive, and there's Teams. So what is all of this? And let's just go ahead and get into it. So SharePoint, OneDrive. Okay, we hear both, right? Which one is which? Well, SharePoint, think of it as it's in the name, it's sharing. So it's either going to be for collaboration, it's for sharing information, It can be structured like a website. So you have like, you can post events and news stories and all that type of thing. You can show your document library right there on your site. People can get to forums or any other resources that they might commonly use. I know with DAR, with disaster and recovery, they have a lot of the files that agents might need if there was a disaster. And so like policies and processes that they might have need reference to, those are all going to be on their site. One of the counties has got this set up, and I have been working with them. So they're using a team site for that, just for their county, so that their agents have quick access to that type of thing. So SharePoint is for sharing. You have two different types of sites, and we'll delve into a little bit more deeply in a minute, but you have a team site and you have a communication site. And a team site is what's created anytime a new Microsoft Teams team is generated. It creates a team SharePoint site, okay? Communication sites are what our intranet is built on. All of the sites there are communication sites. So this is more of a kind of a push. You're going to have you can think of a team site as being for your team stuff, where a communication site is for everyone's stuff, okay? With team sites, you're going to have all of the team members can collaborate and can contribute to the content on that site. On a communication site, you have a few editors or a few owners of the site who do all of the management, the editing, content creation, whatever, but everyone can read it. So that's kind of the difference between those two. So where does OneDrive come into this? Well, if you remember back in the day when we had our shared drives, you usually had a P drive or a personal drive or your home drive, and that was for your files that didn't necessarily need to be shared with anyone. It was for your storage and yours only, and you had an allocated amount of space to store. Well, OneDrive now is still that. It is your updated P drive, if you will. This is your personal drive for your files. They're not necessarily meant for collaboration. You can collaborate from your P drive and share it, or your OneDrive, sorry. And you can share from there and collaborate there. However, keep in mind, if someone leaves, the content of their OneDrive is usually retired, if you will, after about 30 days. At max. I think ours within a week of someone being offboarded, usually their immediate supervisor receives a link that says, here's the link to download content from Fred Flintstone's OneDrive if you need it. So then you would have to go and download that content. So that whole collaboration tool then breaks because that person's no longer there. So we don't really encourage collaboration from OneDrive. If you're working on a draft of something and you want to share and get somebody to help you kind of edit or tweak some things, that kind of thing is fine. But if it's a draft of a draft version of a file, not ready for everyone to be sharing it and collaborating on, then keep it in your OneDrive. Also keep in mind that you get 5 terabytes of storage on your OneDrive. I don't know if you guys know how much that is, but it's a lot. So it's bigger than most hard drives in the computers that you're ordering. So that's a good, safe place for you to store your files. You also have the option to back up your desktop, your documents, and your pictures from your computer to your OneDrive. And you can still save things to your desktop, your documents, and your pictures, except it's going to your OneDrive rather than to your to your actual local computer. And then you have access to it anywhere that you have internet access in a browser. Even if you're not on your own computer, you can still access it as long as you have an internet connection. So when do you store stuff in Teams? Well, that's kind of a trick question, because technically, anytime you save something in Teams, in your Teams files, you're using SharePoint. You're just saving it to a team site versus a communication site, okay? If you ever share a file in a chat with somebody, so the other day I sent Lindsay something, it may have been a screenshot, or it may have been a file that was from, I needed to share with her from something. Those files go into your OneDrive. There's going to be like a Teams chat folder or something, and those files get stored in your OneDrive. If you share from a SharePoint site, it creates a link when you share it, And so anytime you do that, it's linking back over to that shared location on the big SharePoint site. So Teams kind of is a way to access both SharePoint and OneDrive. It's like your portal to both of those types of things. So keep that in mind. Teams is not a separate location where you're saving stuff. Teams is the interface that you use to get to either OneDrive or SharePoint storage locations. We're going to keep going. So why is this important? Well, you kind of heard Lori go through how she's using it, and we kind of heard from Amanda how they're using it, and we've got some examples of how other units are using it. So kind of need to see the big picture in that we're moving away from keeping files on a local computer or a flash drive, which those get lost and corrupted. How many times have I had an external hard drive that I have everything backed up to, and I go to plug it in to retrieve something, and the hard drive is corrupted, and I've lost all of that data. It's heartbreaking. It's frustrating enough when you work on something all day and you forget to save it, or your computer crashes and you lose that. When you are saving things to either SharePoint document libraries or to your OneDrive, the nice thing is it's automatically saving in real time. From the moment you open a document, and you open it and save it from like to your OneDrive or to a Teams files location or whatever, to a document library, from that moment, even if you just type one single letter, it automatically is saving. It's not every 30 minutes, it's not whatever, it is saving in real time. Okay. You also have the option to use different versions. So like Lori mentioned, you always are getting the most current version of a document when you use SharePoint document libraries. But if it has versioning history, so you can actually go back to an older version of a file and grab content from it if you need to. Maybe it was accidentally deleted and it needs to be put back in. You can go back 3 or 4 versions and grab that information and put it into the file and save it. And now it's the new current version, the most updated form of it. And it also lets you know who made those changes. You also have the benefit of real-time collaboration. You can have one file open in a Teams meeting and have 5 different people working on it. Each different contributor is going to have a different color, so you know who is making what changes. So you don't have to worry about which version is the current one, which one's the new one. Do we save Lori's changes? Do we save Amanda's changes? Do we save Lindsay's changes? Everybody's changes are being made at the same time, and it's saving it in real time. So those are some of the benefits. Plus, knowing how to navigate a SharePoint site is going to help you, one, get more familiar with it and feel less intimidated by it, but also help you grow along with AgriLife and along with Extension, because everything is moving to that platform. And we want to encourage people to use that versus using Dropbox or Google Drive, because we don't have control over those. It's not a control freak thing, but that means we can't ensure the security of those either. We can when it's on OneDrive or on SharePoint. So we know they're secure. We know that it's there. If there's a problem with it, we can help you and get you support to fix whatever the problem is. So we want you to become more familiar with these things. If you've used Dropbox in the past and Google Drive in the past, you've already kind of got the basics of using a SharePoint site. So it's very similar. Those are just document libraries, if you will, storage places, and you have a document library on a SharePoint site. Same sort of thing. Okay. So you heard me talk about team sites versus communication sites. This is just a really quick, brief comparison. Whenever you have a Microsoft Teams team created, there's a team site that's also created. I'm going to show you examples of those, and I'm also going to show you an example of the communication site. Web parts are just the fun little nifty things that you add to your site to pull in information. So it pulls information. You don't have to manually go in and add them each time. Team sites, your team members are able to contribute and edit content. Communication sites, that's our intranet. It's really intended for sharing information rather than collaboration. And you're going to have a few editors or owners or contributors, but everyone has the ability to read. there's one exception, and as we always say in IT, especially with extension, there's always an exception. So you have an ability to target a specific audience with SharePoint. So for example, on our information technology site, we have information that is just for our IT staff. And that option in the menu in the navigation only shows up if you belong to a certain group, which is AgriLife Information Technology. Unless you're AgriLife Information Technology, you don't even see that option on the menu. So there is a way to kind of reduce the audience if you need to for even on communication sites.
And then Mary Pearl says, can we request a new team set up? I believe
Yes,
you do
can.
that through your AgriLife people.
Yep, and that's actually on my list of demonstrations. So thank you, Mary. I will get to that too. Let me show you in action, and then that may help explain it a little bit better. So let me share my screen really quickly. All right, so this is you guys should be able to see my Teams window. This is my Teams interface, right? So I have multiple teams. These are all my teams. I have lots of them, okay? So each one of these is a different team. So what we're gonna use right now is Team AIT testing. So you have this Team AIT testing. If I click on here, you're gonna see that I have a channel. So anything that's underneath the team name, starting with general, these are channels. If it has a padlock next to it, that's a private channel. We're not going to dive into that today, but let's look at the general channel. So when I click here, you're going to see over on the right-hand side, there's a tab that says files. Okay. If you look at this little breadcrumb trail at the top, you'll see here's general, right? And it's in something called documents. This documents is a document library. All right, and this channel is in this documents library. So if I went and clicked on documents, you're going to see that same folder right here where it says general. If I click on it, then I have a folder that says mountains. Okay, so these are the files. Now, I don't know if you guys are aware, let me make this a little larger. You have this little 3 dots option. Anytime you see these 3 dots, whether they're horizontal or whether they're vertical, this is going to be more options. If you click on here, you have an option to open in SharePoint. All right, so I'm going to do that and tell it to open in SharePoint. So now this is my team AIT testing. You can see it at the top here. I did not create this site. When my team was created, this was automatically created for me. Okay, so I don't create a team site for each team. That happens on the back end. Teams is really just a wrapper around multiple tools that are for productivity, for collaboration, and communication. Okay, so Teams is an app that serves as a wrapper around multiple different things. One of them being file storage. So we have a document library that was called General. You'll see it here. I can even go back up to Documents, and I have General here. If I click it, there's those same folder called Mountains. And if I click it, there's lots of different ones in here. Don't tell anybody about this. So this is a secret. So, and I'll tell you guys about that in a minute because I have to make sure he's not on this call and not listening. But this is a structure for a team site. Now, you'll also notice across the top, there's like a navigation menu, right? So I have documents. If I click on it, guess what? It's going to take me right back to where I was, okay? Each team has its own notebook. This is OneNote, okay? You can use this online, note-taking. You also have pages. So once you have a site, you can create multiple pages. Just like a website can have different pages within its site, you click on different links, it takes you in different places, okay? Most importantly though, if I go to home, you're gonna see this is what a team site's homepage looks like, okay? I can add news posts here. I can guarantee you for any team that you belong to, if you tell it to, if you go to General, click on Files, and then click on Open in SharePoint, it's going to bring you to the home page. Maybe actually it'll take you to the documents, but you'll have a home page. And if you click here, you're going to have this sort of structure. Unless they've been removed, you'll see these little training options here. What is a team site? How to add a page to a site, okay? These are helpful. It also comes into play with communication sites as well. I've added a web part here that's my document library. I also have a web part that shows team meetings and events. I could create a meeting here and anybody on the team can add their own meeting, whether they're going to be out for the week, whether it's we've got a team meeting coming up on this, you can all add it here. Everybody can be going to their team's homepage to get all their information and updates about that. I also have activity that's pulling in news posts and activity from other things. This came in from AIT, AgriLife IT Communications. This is just activity that team members have been working on. So I only see this if I have permission to see that file or document itself. If I didn't have permission, if Bailey didn't share something with me, it wouldn't show up here in my activity feed, okay? So that's a team's home site, okay? A team's team site, if you will. Another option is, let me hide this one. You're going to see, for example, let's see. That's that same thing. Here's the team site, a communication site. So I have a SharePoint site that I use when I'm teaching people how to use SharePoint. Or the intranet itself. This is a communication site. It looks different only because we've structured it differently and added different web parts. But you're going to see that it also has documents. This could be where you would put a document library for different things. And we're going to show you right here. So let's go to, oh, actually, you know what? Let me do this. A lot of people have asked, how do we actually get to SharePoint? Well, one of the first things you can do is if you're in Chrome, if you just search for, all right, let's just say you type this in. Okay, this tells you, it takes you here. This is just our main public facing page, right? So this is not going to get you where you need to go, right? We need to go to our intranet. So how do we find that? One of the ways is you get there through Teams. I always start, unless you have it like, unless you have it like Lori does, and I don't use Chrome as my browser anymore, I actually use Edge. And so I have, whenever I come in, when I go to a home page, I have a tab that says AgriLife Intranet. So it's like a bookmark. You can go here. If you're in any other Microsoft 365 application, if you're logged in to Outlook on the web or anything else, in the top left corner, you're always going to see the app launcher, or what a lot of people call the waffle. If you click on the waffle, you'll have an option to go to, and let me just zoom in really fast. There you go, SharePoint, okay? You click on SharePoint, let me get back out, and it's gonna bring you to your SharePoint homepage, okay? Lori mentioned following different sites. If you look, you'll see here where I have Team AIT Training and Development. That is a team site, but I'm following it, okay? AgriLife Information Technology, that's a communication site, and I'm following it. How do I follow? I simply click the little star in the top right corner, and then I start following it. So I can start now. I've started following Texas A&M AgriLife Extension Service. You'll also see that it's now added it to my list of following over here on the left-hand side. So let's go to Extension and see what's there. All right, so Extension is its own separate site. And you'll see this when you go to the navigation menu. It has its own top site here. In the top left, you're going to see this takes you back to the main AgriLife intranet. Okay, so now this is back to where we were, the AgriLife intranet. You have Extension, you have all the different professional service units, and you have AgriLife Aspire. This is where Lori was talking about when you're at the top level. If I wanted to search for something, somebody give me a topic. Throw something out there for me.
Bees.
What was it?
Bees.
Fees?
Bees, like bumblebees.
Bees, like bees. Okay, I want to search on bees. So I'm just going to hit bees. All right. So now you're going to see this searched across the entire AgriLife intranet, and I can see where certain things are. I can look at all. I can narrow it down. If I just want to see files, I can click here. And it's going to show me there's some honeybee logo files over here, and that's in SharePoint, and that's in the marketing and communication site. Okay. Then there's honeybees and beekeeping. So this is in AgriLife Extension, and if you hover over it, it's going to kind of show you the breadcrumb of where that file is actually located. Let's say I wanted to know if there were sites that were affiliated with this bees. Okay, there's not a site dedicated just to the bees. Then you can, let's see if there's news. Okay, there was a couple of news posts. Whereas this one was a weekly news brief from Marketing Communications, where do bees go in the winter. Videos, let's see if there's any bee videos out there. Yep, there's some bee videos. I'm not sure where this is, but we'll see. We won't go into them. But you can kind of get an idea of how you can narrow down your search. So from here, we typed in bees. It took me to this long list of stuff. If I'm just looking for a specific picture, then I'm just going to go right to images, and it's going to show me all of these different bee images that are available. And because these are on the intranet, let's just see. This is one from where? Let's just click it. If I click it, it's going to bring up the image, and guess what? I could go and download it if I needed to use it in a presentation. I could do lots of different things with it. If you want to embed it, and we're not going to go into all those different options, but you'll see right here this version history. Let me go back for a second. Let's go back to files. So let's just look at this one. This is a PDF file. But if I click on those three dots, you're going to see this option for version history. Okay, this is going to tell me this one. Hey, Lindsay, look, it's yours. It would show me any different versions. This is only the first version, but if it had been updated and a new one saved in the same location, then you would see any different versions of that file listed here, and then you would simply click on it and you could open it and grab any content. That's a benefit of SharePoint. You don't get that when you save it on your hard drive necessarily. And it's hard for you to collaborate because then you would have to upload it to a different place and all those types of things. Okay, so that's how the search works. Now, this is at the global level. So let's say I went to information technology, and this is one we get asked about. This is just fresh on my mind right now, so I'm just going to type in, let's just type in AgriLife people. And see, it doesn't have to be case sensitive, and it doesn't have to be spelled, well, it does need to be sort of spelled right. AgriLife people. Again, we have an all. It's going to show me everything. If I just want files, I would click here. This is going to give me different directories. I can come into AgriLife. Let's see, what is this one? Okay, this is a terminology. So this is a PDF. So if I clicked on it, I could click on PDF. I could download this again if I needed to. And again, if there was a different version history, nope, still only one. I need to find something that's got lots of different versions. Okay, let's see. Okay, one of the other things you'll notice is it doesn't have to be just Word docs. There's a PowerPoint file. This is a video. So this is stored in Stream. So that's what that little logo is. Here's a Word doc. Here's another PowerPoint. This one is going to be probably just a header. So that's a SharePoint. Here's a, all right, here's a good one, course topics. These may only be versions because we just loaded one or two of these up. Now this opened in Word, online Word for the web. I'm on a Mac, so I use everything in dark mode, so that's why it looks like this. But I do have an option here that I could find the location if I needed to. I could download it. The web version of Word, Excel, and PowerPoint will let you do minor edits. It doesn't have the full editing opportunities that the desktop versions do. So you'll notice here that I have an option to open it in the app or to open it in the browser. Opening it in the app opens it in your desktop application of Word or PowerPoint and Excel. This one opens it in the web version. You also have a download. You can copy a link to this. So if I needed to share it with someone, I could just copy the link and then share it, or just click the share link and go from there. Okay. All right. So that's how the search function works. Now, understand when I typed this in, it is only searching at this point the AgriLife Information Technology site. It's no longer searching the entire organization's intranet, okay? And the way I know that is I look at this up here, we call this our breadcrumb trail, okay? So it's like Hansel and Gretel leaving their trail of breadcrumbs. How do we get back home? This tells you. So this is where I am. I'm on the AgriLife Information Technology site, which is part of the AgriLife intranet, okay? So when I search, I'm only searching here. If I went back up to the intranet, let's just go back to the intranet. Nope, that's the one. So if I come back to the intranet and I were to type in AgriLife people. Don't you hate it when your fingers are on the wrong home keys on your keyboard? AgriLife people. Okay. Now this is searching the entire intranet. Okay. Again, here's files. If I wanted just the images, here's, you'll see with the testing, this was saved in my OneDrive. So this is not only just searching SharePoint, it's also searching my OneDrive. Just like Lori mentioned, when you do that global search, it's finding any files that either I own or are on the, so they would be in my OneDrive, or that are on SharePoint somewhere with that title. Okay, so this one is actually something on my OneDrive that I can go straight to because it's doing a global search. Questions? Okay. All right. So when you are, let's see, this AgriLife Aspire, you'll also see when you go here, AgriLife Aspire on this menu is also a SharePoint site. Okay, each SharePoint site is made up of different pages. They're organized a little bit differently. Like I said, on our testing, this is a team. You can have your documents listed here. With the AgriLife intranet, we don't necessarily have a document library right on the main page, but you'll see that there are some quick links or popular links to go to different things here. They've put in sections for each of the different professional services are listed on this site, so you can go right to them. Let's see, let's just check out admin services. So admin services, on their section, they have a whole area for forms. You can come in, they have them organized by different subjects. These are collapsible or expandable. You can click, if you want them numerically sorted, you can do it this way, and it's going to put them in with the series numbers this way. You can also go back up to the top and just click on the topic if you need to. Disbursements and travel. If you have a question about that, here's the forms related to disbursements and travel. And this is all on the admin services site. If you need to get back from there, how do we get back? Well, we can do a couple of things. We can go back to our home page, or if we have it bookmarked somewhere, you have a tab open, you can go that way. You can go right back up to the AgriLife intranet. When you're at the main AgriLife intranet, you do have what we call these mega menus. So you'll notice that this menu persists across different sites. So we have this menu. If I go to information technology, that menu persists. So this lighter colored menu is the one for the main intranet. The one below it is the one for the intranet site. So that is how you navigate on our intranet. Each one of these things is going to be a different page, we'll just think of it that way. They're different pages. You'll notice here, this is the one I was telling you about, this AIT staff resources. If you go to our site, majority of you won't see that unless you're members of AgriLife Information Technology. So you won't see that. These are things that we need to do our job. We also have one here that's listed for unit account manager resources. This one is going to be another targeted audience. So unless you are a unit account manager, you won't see it. Okay. All right, so we've done the search, we've done following. Let's see, I had somebody else who was asking, what was the other question? That was from?
I think
Okay,
we
okay.
answered Alan's. But yeah, talking about the Teams SharePoint site.
Yes, shared files in OneDrive is, so yes. So OneDrive is for personal files or draft versions of things you're not ready to put out on the SharePoint site. SharePoint has two kinds of sites. So you have the team site and a communication site. Anything on the intranet is going to be a communication site, okay? Each team you belong to has its very own team site. And that's just something that automatically happens whenever a team is created. Which reminds me, how do you request a new team? So how do we do that? That is done through AgriLife People. When you log in to AgriLife People, okay, you would go underneath, and this is a self-service one, so you guys can request your own team be created. If you run into problems and you can't do it, then reach out to your unit account manager because there's a little checkbox that they need to mark, I think, and this is something we've been discussing on the back end, whether it works or not, so I'm kind of curious. Go into your ALP. You would go to manage your IT services. And then right down here at the bottom will be something called creation requests, okay? This is where you would go to request a new team, right there, new Microsoft team, or any other of these options. If you needed a new distribution list, shared mailbox, or a new SharePoint site. So here you go, Mary Pearl, that was the one you were asking. How do you get a new SharePoint site? This is where you would request it. Okay, so if you request a new SharePoint site, be aware that we do require for site owners. So if you make the request for a new site, you automatically become the site owner. We require that site owners go through a mandatory training before they get permissions to edit, create, all those types of things. So you will have to complete that before you kind of get the keys to the kingdom to start managing your site and adding content. If you request a new team, be aware that automatically with that team comes its own team SharePoint site, okay? So if I was going to do this for a new site for myself, I would set the date and time these changes should take place. This is important. Make sure you check the time and date, because if you don't and it defaults and you're expecting your team to be created right away, it may have defaulted to the end of the day tomorrow or something. So you want to make sure you check that. Quick tip, if you click the little calendar icon, click on today and then click away, it's going to set it to whatever time you click that little today option. You click on continue. It's going to ask you what the name for your site should be. It gives you some advice on how to do this. Provide a description of what your site is going to be, and then what you want the URL to be. So all of our sites will always start with this. There's no way to change that, okay? What you're giving us is what you want the ending part to be. So for example, on my SharePoint training site or my team AIT testing, it might just be AIT testing would be my site URL so that we get added to the end here. If you have anybody else who's going to be an owner of your site, you can go ahead and preload it and put it in here. These are the two top sites right now. You have Extension that has its own site at a top level. So if, let's say, this was for a master gardener or a master naturalist or something like that, then you would say it's a hub site for Extension, okay? If you mark it to the AgriLife intranet, then it will follow the structure of it'll be connected to the AgriLife intranet hub central location. So those are your only two options to choose. For you guys, most of it will probably be for Extension. And then if you're outside for professional services or anything else like that, you would choose the AgriLife intranet. Okay, so you would fill in all of this, you would click on continue, and then the last option would be confirm, and that's going to be And you'll see that whatever I put in for my SharePoint site name, it's kind of automatically creating my site URL here. If I wanted to change that, I could tweak it, but it's going to configure it in the correct format based off of whatever you name your site. And then I will choose this and continue. And then at the next page, it will give you a confirmation just to let you review everything, and then you would submit your request. I'm not going to because I don't need yet another site underneath my name. So, but that's how you do it. You log into AgriLife People, come into your ALP, go to Manage Your IT Services, look for Creation Request, check off New SharePoint Site, check your date and time, and then just follow the steps from there. So yeah, these are about the team sites. If you're not already an owner, then the original owner would need to add you as an owner. And if you run into problems, then yeah, that one's probably one that you might want to contact us about. You can do that. It may just be that you can either create a new team just for the group that's working closely together, rather it being a private channel of another team, or and go from there. That's what I would do.
I had one real quick.
Sure.
I'm so sorry if I missed this, but how did you add the calendar function, or maybe it was an events function, to your team page? Like
Perfect.
where we can say either we're out. Yeah, that one.
Yep.
Team
So this
meetings
is
and
my,
events.
yep. Anytime for these, you're going to have an option to edit. So if you don't see it, it might be that your team owner needs to give team members the permissions to do this, but it would be here underneath edit. So that means I want to edit this site, okay? And then you'll notice that when I hover over some of these things, there's this little plus sign here. If you hover over that, it says I want to add a new web part. So that's what I did. I clicked that, and I just did a search for calendar, and I chose group calendar. And then I gave it a name.
Perfect.
And then
I was
from
able
there,
to add it. Thank you so much.
perfect. And then anytime you do that, you're going to get this button that says republish or publish. You always need to click that in order to save the changes and make sure they're functional and get it back out of edit mode. Okay. And then you can also, I mean, this is where you can do lots of different things. This is the section if you need to add a section. The team sites are a little bit different. You can add sections. Let me do it up here. So if you were to add a section, you have 1 column, 2 column, 3. So you kind of get an idea of what these are. Here's the new section here, and here's the second section. Once you're in here, then you have the option to, like if you need to edit this section, this is where you would come in and start adding web parts. So I can add a web part here. I don't know if, do we have hero web parts and team options? Yep. So this is when you see, you'll see this a lot on a lot of the home pages of both team sites and communication sites. Okay, I'm just having one of those days. There, okay, fine. This is called hero content. Basically, this allows you to have something like this. This is a hero web part right here. So you have multiple things. Each one of these can be a link to something else, whether it's on your site, like a page on your site, whether it's a document library, whether it's to an event. These are all different links that can go to something else. And they're often called call to actions. So that's what they are. You can link to different sites. You can link to an image. You can do all kinds of fun stuff. So let's just see. I have no idea what this image is. Come on. Okay, there we go. So you can do different types of things. Where it has this little learn more, if you click here, you'll see that you have these options for each of these web parts. You want to click here, and then each one of these things has its own edit. So if you're getting lost, just start clicking, and there's going to be a little menu that comes up. And anytime you see a pencil, that's when you go into edit mode. All of your options then in your edit mode will appear over on the right-hand side. So you have, this is a link that'll go to, that's the image itself. If I need to change it, usually there's going to be, if I want to give it a title, you'll see now that it shows up here. Let me click over here. It says blocky. If I click on this one, I have this option. You just have to keep kind of clicking on things to edit. Come on. But that's kind of where you would go in. Anytime you need to edit a web part, that's what all these different little things are. These are all web parts. Just go in and play with it. I would say your team site's a good place to do that with your home page, just to kind of learn about the different sites. You also have these links that are learn about a team site, those types of things as well. And I will stop talking for a minute. Connect the group calendar to Teams so automatically upload our team meetings. Oh, Megan, let me ask me that outside of here, because that's one we've been struggling with a lot of different people have been asking that same question. So we kind of need to play with it. I don't have a quick answer for you yet, but I will get that answer and I will have it as a follow-up.
So Jill, this is Dan Hale. Hey, first of all, thank you. You have done a tremendous job. I can't wait to go back and watch the video again. I've been looking at it on my phone, but I just want to tell you how much I appreciate you helping us all be more successful. But the question I had is kind of a functionality, and maybe there's an easier way to do this. But what I've learned is that when you do like this Teams meeting, over in chats, there's that entire basically transcript. Not you could get a transcript, but of all the comments that came in. And you can continue to go over to chat now within this meeting, and everybody that attended that meeting continue to talk to that group or share files. Is that correct? Within that, and that way you can keep things going and maybe do brainstorming or whatever using that over there. Sorry.
No, and that's fine. Yes, so this chat, it depends on how the meeting was set up. Sometimes the meetings are set up to where the chat is only available during the meeting, so it doesn't function like a chat after the meeting. Any files that would have been added here, you would still be able to download and reference. You'll also notice that there's a recap sometimes that can be shared. So yes, this chat should stay available. It can go away though, depending on how the meeting was set up. So I didn't create this one, but if you have an option, let me actually show you. Let me see if I can pull one up for a. Let me look at. Okay. So I set this one up as a webinar. This is one that I did a while back. But if you go into your meeting options, and this can be for meetings or webinars, there is a function that will ask about the chat, and right here. So you'll see where it has meeting chat, and this one says in meeting only. You can just say on, and then it should still function after the fact.
Good, thank you. I didn't even think about going there, so that's great. Thank you.
Sure. Yeah, and sometimes it works, and sometimes, I mean, that's one of those. It can work if you don't change the options, but most of the time, I would say if you're wanting your chat to persist even after the meeting is over, I would just go ahead and leave that on. All right. Anybody else? Let's see. Bailey's asking me what time I'm going to go over in admin services doing our bowling thing this afternoon. All right. Let's see. So Megan, I will follow up with you on the group calendar thing, and what I will do is actually I'll link to it. I'll send Lindsay some information so that we can make sure we link to, if I figure it out how to do it, I'll do a little video tutorial, and we can link to that from the Tech Tuesday kind of as a follow-up link, hopefully there.
See a lot of round of applause. So I think you did a good job.
Okay, well, thank you guys. This has been fun. I can't wait to do more.
Awesome. Thank you so much again, Jill. Thank you, everybody, for joining us. Be on the lookout for the recording. I think it's going to be one that everybody's going to want to share. We will see you next time. Have a great day.
All right. Bye, everyone.